guys, thank you so much, number one, for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule. If you don't know me personally, I think everyone that's on this call I've spoken to at some point, but my name is Allison Hennings, and I have been in the hiring business for many years, 15 years. I started off my career in retail, and then I moved into recruitment where I've worked with literally, dozens and dozens of Fortune 500 companies with helping them find their teams, and obviously place lots of people and help many people find meaningful work. So, work that really makes you happy. And so that's why I created the Work Happy Project. One of the best things that's happened to me in my business is being introduced to the lovely Brittany Tucci. We've worked together now for pretty much since the beginning, like 5 years. Brittany started off as a recruiter working with me. I'll let her explain what she does, but we've worked together for many years, and we've probably, Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong, we've probably done 10,000 resumes between the two of us over the last 5 years. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's probably underestimating, but it's close enough.
yeah. So we're very excited to have you guys here. This is our first webinar, so we're so excited, and forgive us if we're a little bit nervous, but our goal here is to really help people find meaningful work.
That is right, Allison. And, obviously our mantra is, we want you to work happy without going crazy. That really is the goal. So, just to introduce, I guess, a little bit more about the program, Allison, can you tell us, I guess, a bit about the mission of Work Happy, but also who is the Work Happy program for?
Okay, perfect. So, at the beginning of the year, I set a goal that I was going to help 2,000 professionals really help them find their dream jobs. So, really work that you're really passionate about. Maybe for whatever reason, you may have fallen off your career path or so forth. So, what this program is really for is for people who want to take their career to the next level. Okay, so you're somebody who is really ambitious, for whatever reason, be it that you are unemployed or that you are in a job that you don't love or you're underpaid and overworked, right? You've decided that you want to do something about this. This isn't for someone who's kind of diddle-daddling in the, if I'm open to opportunities. You really decided that you want to make a change in your career. You want to either make more money, you want to work for a better company where you feel like you are adding value, or or you're out of work and you've got to get back into the workforce. You're starting to go crazy, and you really, really are motivated to make a change, and you're really willing to go outside of your comfort zone in order to achieve greatness, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, something that you sort of already touched on, Allison, in terms of what the goal is of both this webinar and then also of the Work Happy project in its entirety, is to help people to connect with those dream job opportunities without spending countless hours, sitting online, submitting applications, not hearing back, connecting with recruiters who maybe bring empty promises or who promise more than they actually deliver on. I think, when you and I first started talking about putting this webinar together, what we decided is we ultimately wanted people to become the CEOs of their own careers, to be able to sort of passively attract the very best job opportunities that were out there without having to put in all of this extra effort and deal with all of this extra stress.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I find is probably the biggest problem right now, is that people are they're just going through the process, like the motions of finding a job. Like, you're told, go on Indeed and apply positions, but it's not really strategizing. It's not really about pushing or doing anything different. All you're doing is, like, you're just praying that you're going to find a job, right? Or that you're going to find the right position, but there's no strategy behind it, right? And so, if that's kind of where you are, there's better ways around that. So those are the kind of people who do well in our program, is if they're looking to do something different.
Totally. I completely agree with that. Now, Allison, I've definitely heard of other sort of work assistance programs. I think everybody has at some point in their journey encountered like the run of the mill employment agencies. What makes what you're doing here with the Work Happy program so different to any of those other sort of projects that are out there or initiatives that are out there?
I think a lot of times companies, there's all different ways of being able to find a new job, right? Or to be able to get yourself on the market. But a lot of times what people don't understand is that it's not just about activity, it's about getting results. And it's about being strategic. And if you don't understand how the job search works, it's really hard to navigate your way through it. I've been actively involved in hiring processes for dozens of companies, and I know firsthand that it's not just about sending your resume in. It's about really connecting and developing relationships with companies, and a lot of people just don't know how to do it. Let's face it, you go to school, but you don't necessarily go to school to learn how to find work. And so a lot of times people go through these processes and they mean well, right? But they're raising red flags in front of the hiring manager. So you could be a really talented professional. You could do your job really, really well. But if you don't really understand how it is to find work, you'll find yourself in the same situation. A lot of times people blow up interviews and they don't know where to start, or and then it gets really hard for them to be able to land the work that they want, and they end up giving up and settling. And we show you ways to be able to deal with that. And I think that's really what makes a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, as a former recruiter myself and you, Allison, with many, many years in the hiring sector, we've each had that double side of the coin opportunity. I know for myself personally, I've been in that position. I've sat there for hours in front of my computer, sent out resumes, waited for callbacks, went through the preliminary screenings and then never got the in-person interviews. I've done all of that, and I think becoming a recruiter really showed me what the flip side of that environment looks like, what it looks like to receive hundreds of resumes a day, some really well suited, some not, what it feels like to have people sort of lackluster participating in their own career change. So, another thing that I would say that is so different from what I've experienced with your Work Happy program is just that double side of the coin knowledge. Your hands-on experience in the hiring sector, but then also the practical exposure. I think that each of us has had to being on the job market, which of course brings me to ask you to tell us a little bit more about your story, Elsa. I'm lucky enough to know it. I know, how your career started and how you transitioned and got to where you are now and what drove you there. But I think it would be great if the audience here could learn a little bit about that as well.
Perfect. So that's me here. So I started off, as I mentioned earlier, in the retail industry, and I didn't really love my job. I just kept on thinking the higher I move up, then I will like it more, which really wasn't the case. Then I moved into recruitment, where I started off working for a large organization, with basically in a pit, it was another 116 different recruiters, trying to help Fortune 500 companies and small businesses find talented people. And then I went out on my own about 5 years ago. So I've been really fortunate to work with a lot of leading manufacturing companies throughout North America. Most of the automotive, if it's an automotive company, at one point, Brittany and I have worked with them. I'm really helping candidates get positions, because the way that people look for jobs right now, it's very different than it was 5, 6 years ago. And so in the beginning of the year, I had a big epiphany. So if you're like me and a huge Tony Robbins fan, I was um, at Business Mastery, and Tony was talking about service, and he was saying, one of the things, if you really want to serve your community, you want to grow your business, is that you have to love your clients. And I realized that the clients that I wanted to serve were my candidates. As a recruiter, I can only have one person get a job. Like, I have a position, there's only one candidate that's going to get the job. Maybe there's two if I'm lucky. But in that process, I met a lot of great people who could have done the job, who would have been a perfect fit for many different organizations that were out of work. And it wasn't because they weren't great people, or it wasn't because they didn't work hard. They just really didn't understand the process of finding work. They didn't know how to interview properly. They didn't know how to, their resumes were a mess, or they would say things that would raise a red flag. And, when you're dealing with HR and you're dealing with a very competitive market right now, you really have to stand out. I mean, we've literally been paid tens of thousands of dollars from companies to find people that are actually in their own database. So if your process is just, applying for positions online and reaching out, here and there to different organizations, it really makes it hard to find work. And I found myself doing a lot of preparation for interviews with candidates, and I decided to really serve people in an area that I know a lot of people struggle with, which is trying to find meaningful work and doing it in a way that they don't go crazy. So that's me in a nutshell.
That it's kind of her in a nutshell, but I think if anybody on the call, and I'm sure a lot of you have had the opportunity to actually work with Allison, that was definitely a very humble approach to telling her story, because I think the impact that Allison has had across her years in the hiring sector is something that can't really be quantified just in terms of who she's helped and how she's helped people. So, thanks for sharing that with us, Allison. But I think most of the people on this call know that you're even more of a superstar than how you presented yourself. On that note, I will talk a little bit about me, because I am kind of the newbie to this room. My name is Brittany, and as Allison mentioned in the start of the call, her and I have had the pleasure of working together for about 5 years now. My meeting with Allison was a little bit serendipitous in the fact that we're both graduates of the same college program. And so, and interestingly enough, that college program is fashion. So, neither one of us is really in the area that we went to school for, but regardless, we were connected as panelists at our alma mater, and kind of grew our professional and personal friendship relationship from there. But prior to meeting Allison, and prior to kind of expanding my understanding and exposure to the hiring sector, I was working mainly in communications. I had moved to New York. I was pursuing the fashion industry, learned very, very quickly that was not the place for me, and that I had a real desire to help people, to work with them, to collaborate with them. And I was fortunate enough to connect with Allison and to start that journey as a recruiter, which gave me the knowledge that I needed, as I said, from the other side of the coin, to eventually branch off and start my own independent operation, where I work one-on-one with professionals to craft resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, basically anything that goes into an application process in a way that is well suited to them as a candidate. And as Allison mentioned, there are just so many mistakes and faux pas and things that people put into resumes and on resumes And it's really just because of the knowledge and the teaching that's out there, the information that we're receiving that hasn't really progressed as quickly as the modern business landscape has. So people are still writing resumes like it's 1997, but the job market is in 2019. I mean, the job market's in 2025. So it's for me, it's all about bridging the gap between what we're traditionally told and how to connect that and present people in a way that makes sense for their candidacy. And I've been lucky enough to work with Allison in that capacity to support a lot of the individuals who go through her Work Happy project. And our mission, obviously, is to equip people with the tools that they need, including a strong resume, to get them into those dream job positions. So that's what brings me here today. And thank you, Allison, for having me.
Well, thank you. And you're being a little humble as well.
Yeah.
Because I know how many times Brittany has helped somebody who was literally like, they're perfect for the job, their resume is horrible. She's just took their time and like been able to articulate exactly what this person's looking for. And they've been able to get like $10,000 raises, and just really change people's lives. So she's being humble as well. So, so we've learned a lot of things over the years. We've done a lot of things that are right. So from the beginning, I think we've always understood the importance of having a great resume, the importance of having a great profile. How to present yourself, and we've taught this to hundreds of people who've gone on to do very successful things. In fact, we've had people, literally, who have started off as juniors, and we've assisted them in almost every change in their career. So you might have been a quality tech, when you started dealing with my agency 5 years ago, and now we've gotten you to being a quality manager in the 5 years. Well, you've gotten yourself there, but we've assisted you in all of those processes because, we understand how to pick great people, and we've grown with you, right? When I was looking at the people on the website, there's lots of people that we've helped many times. We've also done a lot of things that were wrong, and we've seen a lot of people do things that are wrong. So a lot of people, we're looking at LinkedIn, and you have things like actively looking for jobs on your profile. I mean, that's just basically saying I'm desperate for work and I'll take anything, and then you get anything, right? We understand, we've seen people not follow up, not present themselves, say ridiculous things in interviews that's too personal, that makes the hiring manager not do well, or just errors on resumes and so forth. But we've also been able to learn a lot through our successes and our failures. And that's how we were able to create the Work Happy project, is because now we know there's a system there's an algorithm, for lack of a better word, right? And being able to find meaningful work. And it's a lot different than what most people think.
Yeah, absolutely. And together, Allison and I have actually identified 3 key lessons that we've learned through those successes, through those failures, and through witnessing people do things right, and also witnessing them do things wrong, or do things in a traditional way that just doesn't make sense to the way that things are today. So the first one, clarity is key. And just to introduce what that is, and then I'll let Allison speak to it a little further, but what that essentially means is we don't take the time traditionally as applicants to build a strong enough idea of what it is that we're looking for. So instead, we just seek out what's available. And Allison's been talking about this a little bit throughout the program so far. If you go into a job search not knowing exactly what it is you're looking for, the type of job, the type of company, the type of corporate culture, how long of a commute you're willing to put up with, what salary price point you're going to demand for the kind of work ethic and delivery that you bring to the table. If you can't answer those critical questions, then 10 times out of 10, you're going to end up in the same type of role that you're already in, because you have no idea what it is that you're looking for to elevate yourself. And Allison, I think you can talk to this a lot about connecting with and them really not being sure what it is they're actually looking for.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, if you're not sure, that's okay. We can help. Okay. But if you're, I get calls like this all the time where people will call me and they'll be like, "Hey, Allison, I'm looking for a job," and I'm like, "Okay, well, what kind of job?" In sales. Look, like sales is so big. What do you want to do? You want to be business developer? You want to be accountant? No idea what you're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you really can't expect the hiring manager or a company to assist you in that process. That's something that you have to do the work and find out on your own. You know, looking at what your skill set or what do you add to the table, what makes you happy. As I mentioned, I switched careers. I hated working doing merchandising, but I really loved hiring people in my previous job. So that's an easy transition. If that's something that was something I loved doing, was hiring people. So you have to have some kind of clarity. You have to know what you're looking for, because when you know what you're looking for, you can attract it. And that's also a huge red flag that people send out. If I ask you, or a hiring manager asks you, like, what are you looking for? You need to be able to articulate that. If it doesn't make sense, then when you say it, then it doesn't match your resume, good luck. It makes it 100 times harder. And I can tell you from a recruitment standpoint, when I have 300 people apply for every position that I post for, we just don't have the time to be able to clarify what the candidate is looking for. So you guys really need to get that piece under control. Okay. Again, if you don't know, we can help. Sometimes it's just a matter of really digging deep and figuring it out, but you need to know that before you start any kind of job search. Okay.
Definitely. The second thing that we have sort of identified through the successes and the failures is mindset over matter. Mindset, when we talk about it, it's a lot of the times when somebody loses their job, that is, of course, a very traumatic and emotionally impacting event in your life, regardless of the cause or the reason. Or if you're in a job where you don't feel fulfilled, where maybe you feel like you're being undervalued, underappreciated, underpaid, demeaned, all of those things can be crushing to someone's ego, to their confidence, to their energy. So when you come into a new job search, you tend to carry some of those emotions with you, and that's why it's so critical to come from a place of yes and to bring positivity and confidence with you into this process. Otherwise, you present a little bit like Eeyore. And again, I want to have Allison speak to why coming in with a strong energy is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat across the room from somebody and in an interview, and right away I'm like, this person has lost their job. They got something happened at work. They're carrying it with them in the interview. They're not, their energy is really, really low. They are, you can tell when you start asking them questions about their previous employer that they can only come up with negative aspects. They've been burnt and you can feel the pain. It's palpable, right? And they have no idea. And for a hiring manager, people want to hire people who come in that are going to add value, and they're going to come in and light up the workforce, not that they're going to question about their what they bring to the table. And a lot of people are unaware that they do this. You can hear it in their voice. You know when you're out of work, you can feel really desperate sometimes, and a lot of people are bringing that energy into their interviews and into their process. You get calls and it's like the person's dead inside. Like that doesn't, if you're dealing with recruiters or you're dealing with HR managers, they don't want to put you in front of a hiring manager if you sound like you've been wounded. Do you know what I mean? You gotta really, really take that matter and make that a key point, because it really does stop people. You can have the best resume, you can have everything in line, but if you can't present that in the interview, you won't get the job. So that's a really strong note to take, is that your mindset, it really does matter.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, Allison, just in what you were saying, you know, uh, something that Allison and I both do, and interestingly enough, it's not something we developed together. For some reason, we just both tend to revert to it, is we use dating analogies a lot when we're talking about the job market. I do it with resumes, Allison does it with with a lot of the other aspects in terms of interviewing and presentation and things of that nature. But Allison, what you were just saying kind of makes me think of that, and how when you go from one relationship to another, and maybe your previous relationship was a little bit unfulfilling, or your partner didn't support you, or made you feel less than, you tend to carry a little bit of emotional baggage. But we see that carryover of emotional baggage with candidates as well, from one job to another. And the same way that it's sort of unappealing to prospective partners when you come into a relationship, and you sort of blame them, or hold angst against them for things that they never caused. The same thing is palpable and actualized in the job search as well. And employers don't want to take on candidates with a ton of emotional baggage. They want to take on people who are confident and self-assured, and who are bringing a positive energy, and who are going to be a great addition to the corporate culture that they've set up. So absolutely, Allison, everything that you just said, I couldn't possibly agree more, which leads actually into our final lesson of the three, and that is, you can't do this by yourself. You can't define a path forward and set that clarity for yourself alone. It takes encouragement and support, and more so, you can't maintain that energy and that confidence alone, because this is a process that can be very draining if you don't know how to go about it.
Absolutely.
I'd love for you to kind of speak a little bit more on what the benefit is of having someone in your corner who knows what they're talking about.
I mean, over the years, I've seen so many people go through this process of when you're out of work, or you're looking to change work, or you just have a strong desire to make a change. And what happens a lot of time is you turn to your friends and family, and they want to help you, but they're going to give you the path of least resistance, right? So most of the time, it's like, okay, well, just apply here, or go here, or do this. And it's not really like the best advice either, And a lot of times people are just dealing with a lot of emotional things that come up, right? If you got fired from your previous job, or if you've been you got laid off and you loved your job, you didn't see it coming, and you're sitting at your desk one day, and all of a sudden your manager says, sorry, you can't work anymore. It's been 6 months and you still don't have a job. Everything feels like it's falling apart. It's hard to turn. You need somebody that you can turn to that can help you get this part of your life dealt with, right? So you have a system, and you can go get a job, and you feel confident. You're not bringing all that with you. But I can't tell you how many times I sat down with somebody, and they're like and I call it stage 3 of the job search process, when they feel so down and out, Every Sunday night, they're like, oh my gosh, it's Monday's tomorrow, and I don't have a job yet. And they're just doing the same process over and over again. I'm going to get it. I'm going to keep applying. I applied for 17 jobs this week. Now I'm going to apply for 20. And it's the same thing. And you really need somebody who can pull you out of that trap of just doing this repetitive stuff, and help you get to the next level. And if it's not with us, people need support during this time, because it can really be hard.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, the reality is, a lot of those lessons, I would say all three of those lessons that we just shared, and understand those three key lessons are really an amalgamation of countless things that we've encountered and learned over the years. But we had to learn that stuff the hard way, both as individuals, as candidates applying for jobs, trying to find our own way, and set our own career paths, but also as recruiters on the other side of it, we've seen the struggle that the people that we've worked with and interacted with have gone through, and we've seen how challenging and difficult that is. And so, Allison,
Well,
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had this something that popped into my head. Is I have a professional that I'm working with right now who had invested in wanted to go into medical sales, right? And it's a different sector, and I'm trying to be as confidential as I can, right? So it's a different sector of, and you need a PhD in order to be able to sell these products, right? And it's a really sought off position, because a lot of people who are in the medical world, and you can make a lot of money in that industry, work really hard to get there. To get a PhD, you have to be best of the best. But once you get in there and you start developing a career, I mean, it could be really successful. And I had a candidate that, or sorry, a professional that I was working with who had been out of work for 5 months. And this guy was like, gone through this program, the PhD, Canadian, went down to New York, put himself through school, got $100,000 student debt, worked on it, gets his first job, loses his job, right? And after 3 months of not working, wanted to quit and settle for whatever's happened because he can't go through the process any further. And that's what really is the genesis of us working on this Work Happy project. A lot of people just give up on their dreams because they can't continue this process of rejection, this process of interviews and false promises and whatever it is, and they just get so much that they're willing to take whatever. But you forget of all the hard work that you did down that path. And to me, that is just such a waste of your education, of your time, is that you don't have the ability to just persevere. And we've all done it. Right? And that's what happens when you take these things on, because when you're by yourself and you're just like, whatever, I just need to work, I need to get this, or you know what, I hate my boss, I'm just gonna find another one. That's where you end up with in this situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, that's for me, Allison, at least the impression that I've gained from working with you both on this webinar and also just learning about the Work Happy project leading into this is there is a far better way to do it. And I think that that's kind of what your goal has been in setting this up for people. And so, I mean, really to recap on how we've presented the hard way before Allison sort of takes over and tells you about the easier way, the better way. The hard way includes applying to any and everything, just looking for what's available instead of connecting with things that are right for you. Sending out a resume that just doesn't align with the job or present your candidacy well. Interviewing poorly, I mean, the scary reality is that most interviews are decided in the first 5 minutes. And, a lot of the times it's not a positive decision in the first 5 minutes. A lot of the times candidates mess up an interview right away, whether it be in their presentation or, any myriad of factors. But that's a really scary statistic. And then the last thing, of course, and I think that we have touched on this quite a bit in the webinar so far, is settling for less, be it out of a desperation of, oh my God, I have bills, I'm an adult, I have responsibilities, I have a family, I have to have a job, or out of routine of just, this is what you know, this is what you've always done. And you're going to continue to cycle through this process of landing in these jobs that are undervaluing you, they're not fulfilling you, and they sort of act as a stopover point. And really, when you fall into that, you end up cycling yourself through all the other points that I just covered as well. So it really really does go full cycle.
100%. I mean, I've said this many times, but most of the best ways of finding a job are almost completely counterintuitive of the way that most people do it. Like, I'll get email blasts from people, and if you do this, please stop doing this. Right? Where they've lost their job, and you can tell what happened. They lost their job on Friday. Now it's Monday. They're back on the game, and they will literally find every recruiter in the GTA or wherever you live, and they will make a list of all these recruiters and on email, and they will send us. They don't even BCC the email. They'll CC your resume saying, on now looking for a job. As a recruiter, if I know that you're applying for 100 different positions, right, you're lessening my chance of being able to place you. So right away, most recruiters are not going to respond. And if they do, they're responding because they're trying to get information from you, because now they know your spot is vacant.
Right.
And people don't think about that, because it would make sense from a logical place. Oh, I'm out of work, so let me tell everyone I'm not working, right? No, right? And so if a lot of things are just counterintuitive from the way that our mind is designed to get work. And I see it all the time. And the people who are, who do it the easier way, they're out of work for shorter times. They are in demand. They pick who they want to work with because you can get a handle of that, right? There's a huge difference of being desperate for work, right? And hoping that, one day your email will be answered,
Yeah.
or being able to say, I want to work for that company, and making strategic moves so that you get your resume on the hiring manager's desk and you're sought after and you can recruit your future employer. Big difference.
Right, absolutely. I think changing the mindset from the job is the commodity to you as the professional are the commodity. You are the one
Mhm.
you're investing your value in. And that actually brings us to this topic of, how do you avoid doing it the hard way? Well, Allison, you and I took a ton of time leading up to this webinar, bounced back and forth, had some disagreements, but largely I think the three secrets we've come to a conclusion on, I think we're both pretty set on. But this leads into the three secrets of how you can do things the easy way, or how you can avoid doing it the hard way. And Allison, I'd ask you to take some time and just speak to each of these really quickly if you can.
Sure. So, number one is to invest in you. So many times, as I said, when you're on the job search, a lot of times, maybe if I know for myself, I just hated my boss. I couldn't stand her. I couldn't work for an idiot like that anymore. She's not on this call, so I can say this freely. But, and that was the biggest, when I left my job, I just didn't want to have another boss like her. Do you know what I mean? Right? And I didn't take the time to really think about what I wanted to do next, right? So what I'll say, the best way when you're out on the job search is you really want to invest in yourself, okay? So you want to make sure that you're putting your health first, that you are reaching out to professionals, that you have a system or a guide or a coach or somebody who can help you in this process. And you really got to make sure that you're taking a lot of self-care. A lot of times people are, as I said, again, it comes up with the energy piece, right? You're out of work, or you're looking to have a new job, and you're doing everything, but you're not taking care of yourself, right? So when you go for interviews, like, that's, people look at your outer appearance. You want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, that you're investing in you, right? From a mental standpoint, from a mindset standpoint, right? And that you're really focusing on what you bring to the table so that you can add more value and you're present in this process, because that's going to be part of the keys. So you really want to take time and make sure that you're putting yourself and your goals first.
Yeah, and I think, another thing, an important thing to note on that is just the timing of when you start investing in yourself. Because I think the reality is a lot of people, they lose their job, and, the immediate response is, well, I'm going to apply a bunch of places and see how that pans out. But then I'll come back around if that doesn't work out, and I'll have my resume redone, or I'll get some coaching, or whatever the situation may be. But the reality is, the sooner that you start investing in yourself, the sooner you will land on your feet in a new role, a role that's fulfilling for you, but also a role that values you where you deserve to be valued. And you save yourself that headache and that stress and that panic of 6 months down the line, still out of work. Finances are even tighter than they were on day one of your job search. And now you're sort of scrambling to try and figure out how to pull it all together and how to start investing in yourself. So I would even take it one step further and say, day one is the day that you start investing in yourself. And it's a leap, for sure. It's a leap. But I think everything that you've said, Allison, proves why it's so important to take that leap.
Yeah, no, I can't tell you how many times I've had people who are like, I'm going to wait to see if all these opportunities pan out. And then you wait, and it's 3 months, and you could have gotten a job in that process.
Right.
Right? Like,
That's
so.
That's a perfect example of, the cheap coming out expensive, because
Mm-hmm.
you pan out 3 months later, you still don't have a job. You've missed out on 3 months worth of salary. And even though you took the quote unquote, the cheap route, it's ended up being a significant expense for you. But
Absolutely.
there's other areas that apply to cheap and expensive. Allison, can you explain kind of what we mean by the cheap comes out expensive?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely different ways of being able to find work. I see a lot of people doing like the resume blast and so forth. That's never a good idea. It's literally, I mean, that philosophy is basically taking spaghetti, throwing it against the wall. I get those letters all the time. They're so templated. Half the time they get the jobs wrong. I've had them with the wrong resume attached to the wrong cover letter. Like, that's just not a great method of being able to find work, especially if you're at the executive level. They're all done by like agencies outside in like third world countries, and where your resume is just, and your personal information is just given to different companies. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it come back to bite people in the butt, because now you've been presented through a recruitment agency and there's a discrepancy because you've applied through and you didn't even know, and it's just, invest the time. Or a lot of times people go to a lot of these free seminars on how to find work, and I can tell you, I mean, this is Brittany knows this as a fact. Most of our clients, a good portion of them, come from this space. So they're teaching people things that they can't do themselves. So if you're going to a free webinar, or sorry, a free career counselor out of like a youth employment service, do not expect them to be giving you, great advice, because they have no idea what the job role is right now. They're telling people go on applying on Indeed and Monster, where for every 7 resumes, every 100 resumes that you send out that way, you're getting 7 human eyes to see your resume. So how is that helping? So
Right.
you're getting advice. I mean, a lot of the stuff is from 10 years ago. I mean, even recently, I was at a college where I was a guest speaker talking about trying to find work, and one of their projects was to create a resume, and this resume was graded by the school, and half of these resumes, no, more than half, were absolute garbage resumes. And it's not based on their experience, it's because people do not understand how to get a job. It's not, you have to sell your candidacy, and a lot of these companies, they have no idea. They just know the theory of it, but they haven't realized how much the market has changed. So if you're getting advice from, I mean, they could be great for just some mental support, and to help you in the process. But in terms, the information is outdated, and I mean, listen, I have more clients that come from that space that try to follow the same philosophies that they're preaching, that come to me because it doesn't work. It doesn't. So
Yeah, absolutely. And then, and this kind of speaks to the cheap comes out expensive, and kind of going down that alternate route. But secret number 3 is really raise your standards. And Allison, can you just explain to them what we mean by that?
So, I mean, if and again, we're speaking to people who are ambitious. We're speaking to people who want to make career breakthroughs. This is your time now to really set the standard of what you want next, right? So if you're looking for a new job, this is where you're going to start with your deal breakers, your must-haves. If you want to work, you want a job where you have lots of flexibility. If you're tired of commuting, an hour in traffic, now you can set the parameters of what you look for in terms of in your next search. This is where you say, I'm going to look at these kind of jobs, and you write those out. Like, that should be, a goal that you have written, not just something that you just, you say to yourself, well, I'm not going to go to Brampton from Markham, right? But you say, I'm looking for a job 15 kilometers within my home, that has the flexibility that I can work. Like, that stuff, you need to be able to put your must-haves, what you can do, right? And really, this is the time, because when you are negotiating an offer, you have the best chances of getting a bigger raise. And we've helped people get $20,000, $30,000 more than they were expected, just because they raised their standard, right? You've gone through this whole process. You know what you deserve. If you're stuck, now you're unstuck, and you know the value you're going to bring. Raise your standards. Why lower it? I talk to people all the time, and I ask them, like, what are your salary expectations? And they'll just say things like, well, as long as it's a little bit more than what I was getting paid at my last job. Oh, okay. Well, like, you realize that you are literally leaving money on the table, right? Like, you do realize that there are, people who do the same job that you do that may get paid more. So why are you leading with this foot that just an extra 5,000 is enough because that's what you think is supposed to happen? This is where you start raising your standards and you start saying, this is what I bring to the table, this is what I want, and you put it out there and it comes back to you. Because again, that goes part of, obviously we want to come from a place of yes, of course, but that also comes right back to just really knowing what you deserve. And when you have a strategy, and when you have the mindset, and when you have a plan, you can get those things. But if you're coming from a place of I'm desperate, I'll take whatever it has, I'm applying, and you're stuck in that, I'm on Indeed, I'm sending these resumes, or I hate my boss, I'm gonna just do it on Sunday and we'll just see what happens. That's what you get the worst. And the professionals that we've been able to work with, I mean, if we could speak to how when they understand this piece, the difference that it's made in their career. When you say, I will never, ever be a supervisor again, I'm ready to be a manager, and you have fierce determination because you know what you bring to the table, that is a different place where you're coming from than somebody who's just sitting at their desk clicking away hoping for whatever happens to happen, right? And that comes from just knowing what you want and being relentless about getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Allison's trying to show here in this final sort of secret number 3 of raising your standards is it all comes full circle. She touched on every single thing that we talked about in this webinar. She touched on how important having that clarity and that vision of where you want to be is, and how important having that mindset of I'm never going to be X again because I know I have the skills to be Y. And having that support and that encouragement, investing in yourself, not allowing the cheap to come out expensive. All of this comes full circle. And I think that's really what the Work Happy project is all about, is helping people to raise their standards. And with that, I know we've got a couple more minutes. Allison, I want to pass it off to you. You can talk a little bit about, the thank you gift that we're giving to everyone who joined us today, and what that means for them. And yeah, if we've got time, we'll take a couple of questions. But Allison, I want to pass it to you so you can kind of explain this.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. So first of all, thank you guys so much. This is our first webinar. I hope we did okay for you guys. Thank you for staying to the end. Thank you for your energy, and I'm so glad that you guys are here for us. As a free gift, what we are offering is a free review of your resume. Sometimes people have really great resumes and they just need a little bit of tweaking. Other times it's a complete overhaul, but we will take a look at your resume at no cost. Okay, so if you see here that I have my email address posted, so by all means, please send your resume over for a free review. We get back to you within 48 hours. And we'll also send you our interview prep. So if you have an interview coming up and you're a little nervous, so forth, this interview prep, this is what I send out. I've been working with this interview prep for a long time and it really shows you how to get mentally prepared for an interview. Because it's not just about knowing about the company, it's about being able to solve a problem for the company. And this kind of gives you the step-by-step on how to be able to nail the interviews, which I normally get to my private clients. But for attending this webinar, I will certainly hand those out, give those out. Also, normally we do consultations with people, and 30-minute consultation is valued at $99. However, today it will cost you nothing. So please feel free to click on the link. You can make an appointment. I will take the first 35 people who register, and we will do a free consultation. And guys, send us your resumes. Let's see what you were working with and see if you're a good fit for the Work Happy project. So Brittany, do we have any questions?
Um,
Um,
So now, if you do have any questions, if you can please send them through. In the beginning, I did ask you to send directly to the organizer. So if you can just type that into the chat, I'll give it a few seconds and then I will pick a couple out. And just to clarify, guys, if you can write down the email address and write down the link for Allison's schedule. I'm not super tech savvy, so it's not going to be clickable. But if you can just write those things down, and then you can navigate to the link, you can send the email, and we'll, as Allison said, get all of that delivered to you. So I do have a couple of questions coming in, Allison. The first one is actually about keywords. Someone wants to know, and guys, I'm not going to use names here. Someone wants to know, are keywords really that important on a resume? What do they even mean?
yes, they are important. I mean, they are important. They're not the only deciding factor. I mean, there's templates and so forth that are important. Like you should never be using any of those free templates and so forth on resumes. They don't convert well. But keywords, I mean, in every ATS system, there's algorithms and certain words are flagged as keywords and or resonate with people on a higher level. So yes, you want to be using keywords on your resume. I mean, it has to read and make sense. If any company, just this is a tip for anyone who's dealing with agencies, if they're asking you to just write keywords, it's not to help you in your job search, it's to help them find you in their database. So you can use keywords by all means. It's really important, but they have to still make sense in the resume. And it's not the only deciding factor. There's lots of other things besides keywords to focus on.
Definitely. And I can speak to this a little bit, in terms of the ATS systems. I get asked about ATS systems all the time. Will my resume translate for ATS? Like Allison said, free templates and over stylizing your resume 9 times out of 10 is going to be a downfall for you with an ATS. It's great when it lands in front of a human, but it can't land in front of a human until it's gone through the computer, and the computer doesn't care how stylized your resume is. There's I would say 99% of the companies that I've interacted with, their match rate for their ATS is a 60% match rate to the terms that they've identified for the job. So, it's about looking at the job posting, but it's also just about using a little bit of sense. What are the kinds of words that someone's going to be looking for in a role that's a management position or a leadership position? Well, leadership would be one, so it's just about using common sense, guys, and choosing to present yourself in a way that makes sense for the role.
And there's also lots of words not to use. And so in your consultation, we can definitely talk about that. But there are lots of words that are flagged also to not move your resume forward, which I see a lot in people's resumes. So it's a little more complicated,
Yeah.
but that's kind of an overview.
So, Allison, we've got another one here. It's a really good question, actually. It's what's the number one rule for a good interview? And I know this is a little bit more in depth than we have time for, but maybe just something quick and easy off the top of your head.
Research and rapport. Research and rapport.
Yeah.
If you got to be able to connect with the person. If you've interviewed with me, I am a hard interviewer. It's not necessarily my personality. If you get to know me, I'm quite the goof sometimes, but I interview hard because I want to see, how you deal when you're aggravated, right? But you still have to have rapport with the person, right? I mean, I'm not evil by any means, but I ask really good questions to people because I need to know where you are when I'm working with you, right? And a lot of times people are so nervous for interviews, they don't build a rapport with the interviewer. They can be condescending. Like, when I worked in the automotive industry, I mean, I know a lot about engineering and people would talk to me as if I didn't know anything. And if you're doing that to to HR and hiring managers and so forth, they pick up on that. They don't want to hire you because that's the way, and you just may not even be cognizant of it. And research, if you're going for an interview with a prospective client, you need to know them inside and out because you want to be able to solve problems for them. And I can't tell you how many professionals that I've seen not get the job. They've nailed every piece of the interview process and they don't get the job because they didn't do the research and they didn't ask quality questions that couldn't be on the interview, right?
Yeah.
And blew it. So rapport and research, know the company inside and out.
I think that's so great. Guys, we got so many amazing questions here. I would love to be able to get to more of them. Unfortunately, we only have a couple of minutes left here. I'll take one more really quickly, Allison, and then we'll say our goodbyes. Are all job application sites the same, or are some better than others?
Some are definitely better than the others, but I can tell you, I'm not going to tell you the name of the company, but I have literally, Brittany was working with me side by side during this process. So we work with one of the most innovative automotive companies of our time, okay? And they were losing thousands of dollars a day because they did not have enough tool and die makers and technical engineers for their line, okay? They had a team of 25 different recruiters that were focused only on finding people who did those specific jobs. That is a lot of hours, like literally on Indeed, on like combing through, right? And could not find people. And Brittany and I were filling these roles faster than their team of 25. And a lot of it is because they could not find people in their database. So you spend an hour applying and you think that your resume and your information is going in these databases and they can't be picked up and I'm not a tech person, but it's just, they are in black space and their own company can't find it. And we would just literally find people by headhunting and using our network and present them and they were perfect for the job. And a lot of it is that they were like, why am I going to apply to this company? I already did. I never heard from them. And so, you know, I don't believe, and this is going to shock a lot of people, if you're spending more than 10% of your time applying on job portals, you are wasting your time. And that's one of the reasons why it's taking you so long to get a job, because a lot of these they are not being seen by human eyes. They're not being manned. They are monitored. They are, if they don't have certain keywords, they go up into space and they just don't get seen. And we've literally made, I mean, if you're a recruiter, you're getting 20% of the person's first year's salary, right? Because they can't find them in their own database. There's a problem. This system is broken, guys. You know, that's why if you're sending out 500 resumes and you're not getting interviews, it's not you. It's the process. It's these systems. It's the ATS systems. Right? It's the key. There's so many different things, but a lot of it is because that's the only method that people are using, and it's broken. Because trust me, you wouldn't be a Fortune 500 company and have to send a small company from Canada, right? Basically, 90% of their income just because you can't find people in your database. It doesn't make sense, and that's a lot. It's more companies that it would make your stomach turn if you knew how many times this happens and how often.
And one thing I would say, guys, is if you are looking for something that you can do sort of proactively online, you're sitting there going, well, should I even be thinking on my job hunt? I would say, evaluate your LinkedIn profile. You're having a strong LinkedIn profile that represents you well and that doesn't make any of the critical errors that sort of Allison touched on a little bit in the beginning and that we can assist you with in the consultation. Having a strong online presence is going to far outweigh submitting a resume to one of these databases that Allison has said is sort of like a black hole. So guys, we're on our last minute. Allison, thank you so much for having me here today. People whose questions did not get answered, could write down the link, write down the email address, get in contact with us. You're entitled to your consultation. Bring your question to your consultation. I look forward to reviewing your resumes. And Allison, I will let you say your goodbye. But again, thank you for having me, and I look forward to connecting with you all beyond this.
Well, Brittany, you know how I feel about you. Thank you so much for being on this webinar. I couldn't do it with anyone else besides you. You're the absolute best at resume and professionals. You have so many of my clients over the years. You've taught me. We've learned together. I mean, we've done, as I said, 10,000, 15, I can't even count. 10 a day for, each for 5 years. Like, you do the math, it's a lot, right? So, And thank you guys for attending. I really appreciate it. And please reach out to us if you have any other questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone. Have a great day. Bye bye.